So one more time, welcome to you all. If you're just coming in, please do add your name and where you're coming in from in the chat. I said I got to see the amazing variety of participants that were going to be here today by looking at your information on the form you filled out, but I would love all of you to have a chance to see and enjoy the richness of perspective and experiences that we're going to have here today. We are going to use the chat to interact some. So if you want to pop that window open or make sure you have room on your screen for that, please do that. We'll learn from each other that way. And I just want to remind you that if you are a Spanish speaker, we have Spanish interpretation going on. Si hablas español, hay interpretación en español. So look for that button and connect to the Spanish room. Jesus will be in there translating for you, and please let him know if you have any difficulty understanding or hearing from him. So I know some of you attended the webinar on the leadership pipeline process a while ago, a couple weeks ago, that Paul Cheeseman led. And so welcome to you all. This is sort of a part 2 for you. If you weren't a part of that webinar, no worries at all. This time will still be very helpful for you. If you have questions along the way, I've got 2 teammates going to be checking the chat. So please do feel free to put your questions in there. I will try to answer some of them as we go along, or maybe at the end of the time, or I'm even willing to connect with you afterwards if that's helpful. So add your questions in as we go. I really want this time to be helpful for you. Let's get started. What is a key development assignment? What is a KDA? We define a KDA as a stretch assignment. It's chosen by the team leader to provide a team member with a developmental opportunity designed to increase competence and leadership capacity. This isn't really something new. This isn't a new to-do for you. If you have some discipleship background, you know that as a discipler, you were often thinking about how to help your new disciple, your new Jesus follower, to grow. You would often consider opportunities like helping them step out to share their faith or facilitate the small group or maybe attend a retreat or summer project, but you would have ideas in your mind about how they could grow. If you worked with new staff training, if you've had new staff on your team, then you know that in that case as well, we often would think about what are something that we could ask them to do that would be challenging for them. Maybe they're going to organize and lead a prayer time on the campus. Maybe they're going to share their testimony at a donor event. Maybe they wanted to get more theological training, and that seemed like that would be helpful. All of those kinds of things are development opportunities. And the KDA is a very similar opportunity. It's a development opportunity for the members of our teams or for possible future leaders of our ministries. The KDA is known as an intentional and individualized assignment that the team leader gives to the team member after praying and seeking God's guidance about what might be a priority area to grow, and so that they can become a more confident and fruitful leader. That's what a KDA is, a key development assignment. There are 2 main times when we use KDAs, typically in our staff interactions. We use them as part of the position focus conversations, and you've probably heard that those are conversations that we encourage team leaders to have with their team members, typically 3 times a year, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the year. Some leaders meet with their team members much more than that. But those position focus conversations often include 3 different parts. One is the critical mission objective. We call that the CMO, which is those parts of the team member's job that connect directly to the strategic plan. And they get to be a part of accomplishing the team's goals that way. The position focus also includes parts of a personal development plan, PDP, things that come up from possibly a 360 or just areas that the staff member wants to grow in. So they typically choose those. And then the third part is the KDA. and that is the key development assignment. Those three elements give a team member the opportunity to be really connected to the team plan, to get good feedback on their work, and to have intentional opportunities for growth. That helps people to feel very engaged with the team and the work and continue to find ways to grow. We also use KDAs as part of our leadership pipeline process. So as Paul discussed in his webinar, the leadership pipeline process typically involves a national or a global team that is discussing and preparing future leaders for the ministry. The team together will identify the roles that are needed and the key character and skills that are needed for that role. Then they evaluate or assess the potential leaders that could eventually hold those roles and choose KDAs, key development assignments, to begin to prepare those potential leaders so that they will be better equipped to be considered for those roles. And if you don't feel really familiar with KDA or with position focus or leadership pipeline process, we can have some time for questions at the end, possibly, or again, we can always talk about this later. There's also lots of resources on our LDHR website, ldhr.org, about both of these times. Now, besides those two, there are plenty of other times when a key development assignment might be helpful for developing someone. So let's talk about how to write a good KDA. What makes a good KDA? I've already mentioned that prayer is a big part of that. We will write better KDAs if we talk to God about them before we write them. As well, a good KDA is designed specifically for the individual and the desired development area. It's not just busy work that the team leader doesn't want to do. A good KDA takes the individual a little bit out of their comfort zone. It's what we call a stretch. It's something that's challenging, but still attainable. A good KDA will be somewhat significant in both time and scope. It might be like a week-long event that someone could attend, or even a year-long responsibility or learning option. It's not usually something that could be accomplished in just an hour, for instance. A good KDA is accompanied by ongoing coaching. And so the team leader or coach is constantly or continually asking good questions about how it's going. What's getting in your way? Is there anything you need from me? Coaching makes it even better. And then lastly, a good KDA receives supervisor review and feedback. That team leader checks back in. So you want to ensure that when you've created the KDA, you've created it in some way that it's measurable or given them something that they can summarize and come back and share with others. Because whenever we share what we've learned with others, it really helps that learning to stick with us and it contributes back to the team. And if it's somewhat measurable and we can see the progress, then we can celebrate the progress. And that's something we really want to include with a KDA. So we're going to look at a KDA in three basic parts. Who's it for? What is going to be the growth area for that particular person? How are we going to write it? How is it going to look, basically? We'll spend more time on each of these three areas. And we'll start first with the who. So this is where I want you to start getting involved. If you're thinking about writing KDAs for a position focus and you're a team leader, then I'd love for you to be thinking about writing it down, making a note of the actual names of the team members that you'd like to develop. Think of 2 or 3 that you could work on during this time. If you're not the team leader right now, well, this is your chance. You can pretend you are. You can think about your teammates and you can think about how you might want to develop them. Now, if you're thinking about this in terms of the leadership pipeline process, maybe you're part of a national team and you're wanting to prepare. Maybe the GCM ministry wants to expand to another city, or maybe digital strategy wants to start up in a country. You may have some roles in mind. So I'd love for you to think about people that would be possibilities for those roles. Now, think out of the box if you need to. These are not people that are ready for the role today, right? These are the names you have in mind are people who you could bring maybe one step closer to being a possible leader for that role. And if you can't think of anybody, your situation, your scope doesn't really include so much the position focus or the leadership pipeline process, you can practice by writing a KDA for yourself. That's totally fine. Think about some areas that you'd want to grow in, and we'll practice writing KDAs that way. Okay, so are there any questions at this point that I would need to answer to keep going? Oh, I did want to tell you that I will be sending the slides and the notes out afterwards. So feel free to take notes if you want, but don't feel like you have to capture everything. Okay, so someone has asked quickly, does the coaching process have to be the immediate leader? No, not necessarily. You could come up with a KDA and encourage them to get coaching from someone else as part of that. And that person could be doing the coaching. We'll see that on a slide coming up. Definitely, you can think about doing KDAs for your disciples. Possibly the LDHR team might be the person that helps with the KDA. That's certainly possible. When it's position focus oriented, it usually is the team leader. It can be someone else. It can be a coach. When it's the leadership pipeline process, it could be any number of people from the leadership team that would be checking in. All right. Yes, LPP meaning the leadership pipeline process. Excellent. Okay. So we're doing pretty well there. We'll keep going now. So you have names in your mind. You have the who. So let's look now at the what. What should the KDA entail or be about, basically? So there's lots of different ways that you can come up with ideas. You may have ideas right now on your head, like you know exactly what it is that you would like to help this person develop. But if you don't, but you'd still like to give them a KDA, here's some things that you can think about. You can think about what this particular team member or future leader that you have in mind is going to need to know in the future. What areas do they need to grow in, or what skills might they need to develop? Maybe there's a strength area that you see in them and you'd really like them to develop it. You'd like them to have more confidence in that. You could pick something from their strength area. You may have observations from their team dynamics, from their interactions with other people, their work productivity. Maybe they've shared their 360 results with you, and there's areas on that that could be chosen as a key development area. You may be very familiar with the skills that are going to be needed for a particular role. You may want to create your KDA more around that particular role. Like if they're going to become a team leader in the future, what kinds of things do they need to have more practice with? Do they need to get better at? Do they need to know that they don't have yet, having just been the team member? If they're going to possibly take on a national team role or even a global role, there are different aspects of that role, that job, that someone might want to be working on to sort of get better ready to be considered for that role. And there were documents that I shared with you, some Google Docs, and I'll share them with you again afterwards, that look at KDAs from both of those ways, more individual or by the particular role. If you're part of LDHR, you might look through the LDHR quadrants and think about areas from there. SLM, I know, has a team leader training. Maybe there's sessions in that would give you ideas of how to grow, or an area for your team leader, your team member to grow in. I'm sure all of the different strategies and capacities represented here, or just the simple scope of your influence, will give you ideas about how someone could grow, what you might want to write that KDA about. And then, so you could also use the leadership framework to think about different areas. Someone might want to grow in being a spokesperson or being a coach or being a vision caster. That's a lot of different options. So what I'd like us to do now is actually practice this. I'd love for you to put in the chat, thinking about the person that you had in mind. what would be an area that they could grow in? What would be an area that you would want to develop in some of the people that you've been thinking about? Don't put their name on there. Just put the particular area of growth that you might want to develop in a leader that you know, a potential leader. So let's see what you come up with. Let's learn from each other. What are some potential growth areas? Okay, you want to help them become a direction setter. Yes, great. Get better at being a direction setter. Or possibly, so you're looking at all the different roles. Exactly. How can I help them become a better coach? How can I help them become a better spokesperson? I know someone who would be a great team leader, but they're going to have to do more in the spokesperson role. How do I help them prepare for that? What else? What other areas? I'm sure there are other growth areas that you can think of. Better communication. How could they be a better communicator? Helping them depend on the Lord more. Sure. Change agent, vision casting. You guys are doing great. Being more relational, using the strategic planning process. Yeah, more heart relational areas, spiritual growth areas, change agent. Be thinking about your specific people, because I would love you to have practice actually writing the KDA that you could take home and use, that this isn't all just in your head right now. How to be a better networker. Love that. You can see there's a huge variety of different things we can think about. Everything from just relationship with the Lord areas to relationships with other people to specific roles. Strategic planning process again. Yes, you want them to be ready to actually lead a project. That could involve a lot of different things. Being a better team player. Yes. Mentoring new leaders, being more strategic, working collaboratively. These are great, great areas. Okay, continue to put things in there if you want, but you have the general idea. So you have the who in your mind, and now you have the what. You've been very intentional to think through knowing this person and knowing what I might sort of envision them doing in the future, or even contributing better to the team. These are areas that I'd want them to grow in. So now we get to the really good part. It's like now it's how do we write it? How does that KDA look? This is where we want to think about how does that particular person, how does that team member or staff person, how do they learn best? How can I create a KDA that is most helpful for them? And these are some of the things you might want to think about. What kinds of resources can I use, right? Maybe I'd like them to go through a course and come back and give me a summary on it, or give a summary to a whole group of people. There are courses on ldhr.org in the Learning Center about all different kinds of leadership mindsets and abilities, behaviors that we want leaders to develop. It could be a course from there. It could be a coaching opportunity. We talked about the fact that they could have a different coach for their KDA. Maybe you just want them to have a personal coach, especially about a more personal area, or possibly someone who can help them grow personally or spiritually, someone who can help them with a particular skill. You could connect them with a mentor. Are there experiences that I can give them? Is there something that they could go attend? Could they come along as a +1 with me to a particular event or experience? Could I give them an experience? For instance, someone had mentioned leading a project or something like that. You want to consider what is their learning style. Are they more of a verbal processor or a studier or auditory, or do they like hands-on learning? That might depend how you would sort of form your KDA. Who's in their community that could be a part of this? What networks could they maybe be a part of? Is there a cohort learning opportunity possibly that they could take part in? So let's do a few KDAs together, thinking about these things and thinking about the areas that you just put up there, okay? So someone mentioned, I have at the bottom of my list here, partner development. How could we help a young leader grow in the area of doing partner development? What could that KDA look like? How would you like to form a KDA for them? What are some of the things that could be part of the KDA? I would love for you to also put that in the chat now, and let's see what we come up with. Let's talk about specifically partner development. Let's help this leader grow altogether. What could they do? What are some things you could ask them to do? So someone's put vision casting in. Certainly, you could ask them to present or create a message that would cast vision to potential donors, right? You could ask them to pay attention or to go study the vision casting presentation on from the leadership framework and create their own presentation. Certainly. What else could they do? They could go on an appointment with someone. Yes, you could ask them to go on a certain number of appointments over the next couple of months with someone and see how they do it. Someone who loves partner development. You could talk to them about how they're going to build relationships with people that would be potential donors and have them come up with ideas, maybe 2 or 3 ideas of something they could do in the next few months with their potential donors to build relationship. I'm just grabbing from the words that are coming in. I'm thinking that they are related to this, but you can see how it could be. Encourage them to get more contacts. Certainly, you could give them a goal of a certain number of contacts to gather together that they're going to contact over time. Encourage them to take a friend with them to the field to see their ministry. Certainly, yes, that would be something that could be that they plan the whole time for them to come in and expose their friend to what they're doing in the work and what they're doing. I love that. Yes. The communication is a great one. Maybe the issue of partner development could really grow as far as how they communicate to donors. You may want to do that on an individual level. If you're hoping that they'll be a team leader, you may want them to do that as far as the whole ministry, the broader ministry, and have them think about communicating about the whole, the scope of the ministry. If it's a role in fund development, they may be looking for something even larger at a national scope. Depending on what their scope is, you would design the KDA for that. You wouldn't want to give them all of these things as the KDA. Remember, it needs to be attainable, it needs to be doable, but you would definitely want to think about which elements of this could you put together that would be sort of a challenging thing for them to do, maybe over the next 6 months, maybe even over the next year, but something that they could do. And the key thing again about it being something shareable, maybe at the end of that time, they come back and they share what they've learned, what was most effective, or what they enjoyed the most, or what worked well for them, what was challenging. And they could actually share that with a group of people, maybe new staff raising support, maybe the team. Think about a way that they could share what they've learned by going through that experience. And you've got a really good KDA there. Okay, let's take another one. Let's practice that one together. How about coach? How could we help someone become a better coach? What are the kind of KDAs that you could think about writing for them that would help to make someone be a better coach? Share your ideas. Let's learn together. How could you be a better coach? You could have them practice listening. Yes, you'll probably have to think that through a little bit more specifically. How would you do that? What kind of things would you have them do? Maybe a course on listening, maybe a book about being a good listener. You'd want to make it sort of specific. Practice writing open-ended questions. That's excellent. That's a great idea. Yes, asking good questions, doing the coaching training. Yes, attend the coaching training with Karen Zando. Excellent. Yes. Read the book on the coach model. Now, reading a book isn't typically a challenging thing for everyone, but for some people it could be. It could be very challenging to get through a book. So again, you want to know your person, you want to know how they learn best. But yes, maybe read the book and prepare a little presentation about it. That would be a great way to make it a strong KDA. And they would share that learning with someone. Have exposure to a good coach. I love that. Yes, yes. Have them watch someone else coach or go and meet with them and ask them questions. Good questions, asking them what they want to do. You certainly can, and I'm not sure if you meant this by putting that in there, but a KDA can be designed a bit collaboratively. We're doing it collaboratively right here, right? We can work on KDAs together, but you can work on the KDA with your team member, with that leader. You can ask them, this is the area I'm thinking about. I'd really like you to grow in this. I have some ideas, but what ideas do you have? How would you grow in this area? And it can certainly be a collaborative thing. It's not something you have to entirely come up with in your own mind yourself. So ask them what they would want to do. How about asking them to coach a couple of people? and get feedback for them. Design a feedback form at the end of those couple of months. Maybe they do 3 or 4 or 5 sessions with the person, and then they ask that person to give them feedback on how they did as coaching and what they would suggest they do better or worse. That would be a good KDA for someone. As a coach, they could write KDAs, certainly. They could help each other. I will tell you, one time as a team, we created our own KDAs. We each kind of thought through it. Then we met together as a team and we helped make each other's better. So one of my team members said, I'm going to do this. And, I said, well, that's something you could do in your sleep. That's not challenging. How about if you do it, with this extra little caveat that would make it more challenging? Someone else on the team said, well, I'm thinking about this. I said, that sounds horribly hard. Let's tailor it back a little bit and make it doable for you so that we can really celebrate at the end. So you could even do KDAs together with someone. That helps you coach people. You can definitely work on coaching your children at home. That is a super challenging KDA. And now you want to think about how are they going to report back, though, without telling too many details about their children. But yes, maybe a devotion on what they've learned about being a good coach and what it means to ask good questions and be humble and not try to control people. Excellent, excellent ideas there. Yes, help them practice coaching. They could practice with you. You could tell them, I have an issue, practice coaching with me. You're seeing that there are a million different ideas. We did create some resources that have sample KDAs on them for different areas and different things, but this is really the way to do it. Do it with each other, just brainstorm, and then bring it back to a couple that would really be helpful for your particular team members, your particular people that are in your scope that you want to develop. There's lots of great possibilities out there. Okay, so here's one more slide about ways to do sort of the how of a KDA experience. I think you all are probably familiar with this, but these are the 5 E's of development, we call them. So you want to be thinking about the environment. How do I set up an environment that really values learning, that offers encouragement, the freedom not to know something, to ask questions? How can I set up the environment for them so that their KDA is really successful? What kind of equipping could be a part? Do I want to include in a training or a course, something like that that really teaches them? What kind of exposure can be involved? It's really great if you can involve other people in that process. So what kind of mentors, what kinds of coaches, what kinds of relationships would help them learn? What kinds of experiences can I give them? Could they be a part of a task force? Could they go sort of shadow a different capacity or strategy and break down silos that way? What hands-on practice could they actually have? What could they do? Not just read or write, but what could they do? That's especially helpful for certain people. And then finally, that evaluation, and we talked about that. But you want to have some way to give feedback. You want to have some way to hear back from them. And you want to have a way to celebrate. You want to be able to get to the end and say, this was really great. Look at the progress you made between 6 months ago and today. Celebration is something we tend to forget to include when we're developing people. We want to celebrate progress, and that's very encouraging for people. All right, so what I'm going to do now is let you go into breakout groups and continue to work on your KDAs. You all have a couple of people in mind. You have a couple of what's in mind. And what I'd like you to do is write KDAs together. It's sort of like a teach back situation where you say, I would really like to develop a KDA for this particular area, for this person I know. What would you suggest? And so in your little group, have each person contribute ideas of what they think might be a good KDA. And you can sort of take notes and remember those and feedback off of each other. And then the next person take a turn and say, I would like to develop a KDA for this particular scenario, for this particular person, and have each person give suggestions. So since you have 2 or 3 people in mind and a couple of different what's, you should be able to sort of circulate around a couple of times. I want to have about 5 minutes when we get back. I'm going to give you a good 15 minutes to work on this, and then I'll bring you back together. Welcome back. Welcome back. How'd that go for you? Good? Somebody come up with a good KDA? Tell me what you're working on and what KDA you're thinking about assigning.
Yes, I had the privilege of being on a team with Nancy, and I think she's Charlene. I'm going to use Nancy's case. She said she has this young graduate, fresh graduate, and she's working so hard from among the volunteers. And so she wants to help develop her by getting her involved in organizing an event.
Okay.
And then we all came up with suggestions as to like, okay, the question was, will she guide her from the background? She said yes, she'll guide her. And then she'll help her to put in place a team. And while she's putting the team together and they're working, they have a framework that helps them identify even the members of that team and their potentials. I think that is what we did.
Excellent.
Or we
You're sort
discussed.
of doing two things, training the new person as well as training them to think about how to develop other people. So who you would pick
Yes,
to be on that team. You're learning to
yes.
evaluate and develop people. That's great. Thank you. Anyone else want to share a KDA?
I'm leading the prayer ministry in named Stan. And so one of the ideas that I was encouraged to do is that we are already doing prayer walks in different countries. And
Okay.
so the person that I would like to one day take my role, I would ask that person to develop the prayer walk for the different country that we're going to. So I
Excellent.
don't have to do it on my own, but that person can take the lead.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And then have some feedback time afterwards as to how it went.
Yes.
So they can grow
Yeah.
from that and you can also encourage them with some positive feedback on what they did. That's
Yeah. And
great.
the evaluation or the feedback, not just from me, but from other people.
Perfect. Yes, excellent. That's really good. Well, you all have done a great job interacting. I thank you so much for being here and being a part. I want to mention one of the questions that comes up often is that, and that is, does everyone need a key development assignment every year? And the answer to that is no. I mean, sometimes people have things going on in their lives or have made a transition or are new to the team and they have enough challenge going on already. We don't have to feel like we have to give a KDA to everyone every year. So just keep that in mind that this is something that we want it to be something that's really helpful for the person. We don't want to overwhelm them. So sometimes it might not be the particular time to give a KDA. And then again, what we talked about before, that you don't have to be, as the team leader, 100% responsible for writing that KDA. It can be collaborative. You have seen the advantage of hearing from others and their ideas that come up with something that maybe you hadn't thought about before. Definitely work together with people, work together with the team member, and make those KDAs something that isn't just a do for you, but it's actually really beneficial and helpful for the person who's being developed. So if you have more questions, feel free to send them to me anytime. We will try to come up with some sort of recording if that would be helpful for others who haven't been able to attend. And you have those documents, may resend them as a summary of the time. But thank you for coming. Thank you for engaging. It's really, really great to know that we have so many people dedicated to developing others, so many people interested in that and caring about that. It's very encouraging to me. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.